And I'm going to use it actually, so I've typed in a prompt for our next speaker, and I'm actually going to use it to sing a song. So let's see. So, cool. And then we're going to try have it. Let's see if this works. In Northern Ireland, where beauty's found, stands George Clarke, purpose bound, from neglected roots to home so grand. His touch brings life across the land. A tourism Northern Ireland's conference pride. George Clarke's tales fill hearts with delight. Restoration man with skill so keen, brings buildings alive, a sight unseen. Sight unseen. Twist of fate led him to TV stage, where his expertise shines on every page. From building new life to amazing spaces, his journey through architecture embraces a tourism Northern Ireland's conference pride. George Clarke's tales fill hearts with delight. Restoration man with skill so keen, brings buildings alive, a sight unseen. Sight unseen. Let's give it up for George, a star in our view. His legacy lasting, tried and true. At Tourism Northern Ireland's event today, George Clarke's vision lighting the way. At Tourism Northern Ireland's event today, George Clarke's vision lighting the way.
Have a seat, George.
I don't know what to say about that.
Well, do you know, I had the exact same feeling last Friday where Kieran and I hopped on the computer to record the intro, and it was sort of terrifying today to see when they were doing the languages, they actually had the words and the phrases. I'm delighted to know that AI has not yet beaten Yuri accents, and there will still be...
It was one of the prompts to make that annoyingly catchy.
And who owns the copyright? I can see you using it now, George.
You get paid for that? Do I get any rights or anything? No?
Well, it depends on the paid or not paid. You're very, very welcome. You were in Ibiza last night. Not raving, not partying.
So isn't that interesting that you've started off with that? So when we're talking about tourism...
I'm jealous.
Tourism and brand, like everyone just automatically goes Ibiza, clubbing, raving, getting wasted.
We're in a quiet little corner.
But I think that's really, really fascinating about the perception of a place or the brand of a place and what makes it so distinctive. It's when you actually get so... It's interesting, I've been in Ibiza never until 2015. And I went with my kids. And I'd been asked probably for about 10 years by friends of mine, have you been to Ibiza? No. Oh, you've got to go, it's brilliant parties. I just thought it'd be my worst nightmare, right? So I never went, ever. As a tourist, for no reason whatsoever, never went. And I was kind of forced to go, and I took my kids. And by the end of, I would say, the 8th day, I'd put an offer on a house. Right?
Because your perception of it had completely changed.
Because I never went to a club. I didn't go raving. I didn't do any of that. And I just discovered this beautiful island where you've got really creative people. It's just 2 hours away from London, where I live in West London, so really easy flight. Small airport when you got there, really accessible. It was just, food amazing. And Ibiza's known as the global village. I don't know if you know that. They call it the global village because it really is kind of an invasion of people from all over the world. I think the population of Ibiza is like 360,000. 7 million people go through the airport. And I just think it's fascinating that you picked up on that. And you're like, oh yeah, but you weren't raving, were you? No, I wasn't. And the reality is completely different to the perception.
Yeah, absolutely. And that applies to so many different places. When I was listening to Adrian and speak so powerfully about his dad and kind of life's sort of twist of fate, I was thinking about how you came to your own journey, because your dad passed away when you were very, very young. But your grandfathers They were the inspiration for you, isn't it, in terms of the builders like that? Was it in the blood?
I mean, I think most of us have strong connections with our grandparents. I think you might have tricky relationships with your parents, but I think being slightly removed from your grandparents means you've got a bigger connection, if that makes any sense. My granddad was a builder. Big influence on me, taught me to kind of see the world around me, look at buildings more. He used to take me to building sites when I was a kid, before the days of health and safety. Honestly, I think I was 8 years old the first time he took me on site. It was a school holiday, and I was like in diggers and bulldozers and stuff, which that kind of opened up really the joy of building stuff. That's what made me really excited about it. The idea that you can design something, draw its hand drawings over to a builder and then see someone physically build something that could hopefully last 75, 100 years.
And it's really interesting because you didn't, obviously, you eventually did, but you left school at 16. So
Yeah, I didn't do my A-levels or anything. I got a job working for an architect without AI or anything.
Although I'm sure that's changing that world as well.
I mean, that just shows progress, really. I mean, the quick story is that I went to see a careers officer, and you get to see a careers officer when you're 15, 16, and I'd selected my GCSEs, and I was obviously doing them. I think I had a year left, and he said, "What do you want to be?" I said, "I want to be an architect." And he just had this one book in front of him, which must have had every career in there. And he went straight to architect, and he said, "Well, you need to do maths A-level, science A-level, possibly English A-level, and maybe one of the creative arts." And I was like, that's amazing, isn't it? That architecture, which is all about the creative arts, you've just told me to do one subject out of 3 or 4. And I was terrible at maths.
Like me.
I still am. And he just said, "Well, if you don't do maths A-level, you will never be an architect." He said, "So why don't you just forget about that?" And he looked at the bottom of the page and he said, so it says here, alternative jobs for people who kind of want to be an architect but will never be one. Didn't quite say that, but that's what I meant. And it went, "Why don't you be a graphic designer?" And I've got nothing against graphic designers, but I didn't want to be a graphic designer. I wanted to do buildings. If I met him today, I'd probably shake his hand because he annoyed me so much. I was so angry when I walked out. I just thought, I'm not going to have him put me off. And again, before the days of the internet or AI, I got the yellow pages out and hand wrote 46, 47 letters to architects in Sunderland and Newcastle and Washington, Newtown, saying, "Can I have a job?" And they gave me a job when I was 16.
That's how it all began. Yeah, we used to have a program here in Northern Ireland called JigCal. I don't know if anybody remembers JigCal. You stuck your pencil in and then it predicted, you put it in and it predicted what you would be. So mine predicted I'd be a religious leader. Still have some high hopes that. Can I talk to you about Sunderland and where you grew up? Because you talk about how your home is the most powerful, architecture, or I suppose landscape that we have. And there are huge similarities. This morning at about 5 o'clock, I went for a lovely walk right along here, right along the Maritime Mile. And Sunderland and Belfast are quite similar. Like, I mean, at its peak, there would have been, hundreds of ships being built in Sunderland.
I think, look, you talk about people, place, and partnership. I think people and place, for me, are staggeringly important. Of course, partnership is as well. Really understanding the people and really understanding a place about what makes that unique. You might have common themes, there might be commonalities between one place and another, but having that kind of USP about what the real brand is of a place and how you sell that is unbelievably important. Funny enough, I put a message out about Sunderland yesterday. I've got a book. It was published in 1953 on the 600th anniversary of shipbuilding on the River Wear in Sunderland. And it's a bit of a kind of old dusty book, as you can imagine, from 1953. But I just put a post out saying I'm really proud of our industrial heritage, and obviously I'm gutted it's not there now. And someone put a message back on there. This is a complete coincidence. I just read it this morning before I got on the plane. And it said, funnily enough, I was in Belfast recently, and I loved the way that they celebrated their shipbuilding heritage. And I'm angry as to why Sunderland has lost all of its heritage. And it was just complete coincidence that someone, after a second comment, mentioned Belfast. And I went straight back and went, I'm on a flight going to Belfast now to talk about architectural heritage. And I find that really fascinating that someone has just made that connection straight away between Sunderland and Belfast, celebrated what Belfast had and still has, and what Sunderland hasn't. And I hate to kind of be negative about my home city because I absolutely love it and I love the people there, but it's unbelievable how much we lost and how much we don't acknowledge the history and heritage of a place, and that we did demolish so much stuff. And I'm not just talking about in the 50s or 60s, like in the 80s and 90s, we demolished so much stuff that we should never have got rid of. And in some ways, it ripped the heart out of the place. And when I say rip the heart out, I mean like physically rip the heart out of people, like really upset them because they were like, hang on a minute, our city's been built on that stuff and you've just swept it away. You've just got rid of it. And I think it's one of the biggest regrets of my home city, really, because now everybody talks about the value of heritage and history and storytelling and what that means. I mean, it's interesting actually when Adrian did that talk and he said, put your hand up if you decided what you wanted to be at 12 and
Yeah.
you've become that today. I mean, I wanted to be an architect at 12. I'm still an architect. I love architecture. I love buildings. Obviously, I never imagined I'd be a TV presenter. I never imagined I'd be sitting on a stage like this now. So, yeah, it's a variation of what I wanted to be, but it's still genuinely what I wanted to be. But actually, everything I do is storytelling. And I think so many things that we do in life really is about storytelling. If you think about history and our place within it and what we do, our own lives are a story. What we've created or what we've done is a story, or the businesses that you've built or that you run is a story. The staff that you meet every day and talk to, they're a story. And if you think about tourism, it's in some ways it's the simplest thing in the world, isn't it? You want to tell a story about what your place is about and what the people are about. You're hoping to sell that story in some way, kind of share that information, so that you're hoping that someone somewhere in the world, whether it's down the road or across the sea or over a further sea, goes, oh, do you know what? I'd love to experience that story. And they jump on a plane or a ship or a train. Can't take a train here, but you know what I mean. And get here and experience that story, really enjoy it, have their own experiences, go back home and share that story so that someone else gets inspired by that and comes again. In some ways, that's it, isn't it?
Yep.
So no matter how we do it, and no disrespect whether it's AI or the internet or a phone call or meeting someone, it's about sharing those experiences and those
So
stories.
then, how do you go about instilling pride in a place by building? Because as you say, everyone has a story and a backstory. Every building has a story and a backstory. So how
Well,
do you go
suppose
about that?
you've
Because
got,
it's not just bricks and mortars. That's hearts and mind stuff, which is a bit more.
yeah, I think with all the technology in the world, sorry, my headset's coming off. With all for me, I mean, the technology is fascinating and it's absolutely brilliant. I mean, obviously AI is going to change so many things, and we should absolutely, work to the benefits of all of that. But the internet did the same back in the day. That was a massive explosion, just having websites. Okay, it was nowhere near as intelligent as AI. For me, they're vehicles of communicating. Instagram is a vehicle for communicating. If it's done well, it's brilliant. If it's done badly, it's terrible. I've got loads of issues with social media. I think there's a lot of social media that's been toxic, that's been extremely damaging. I think it's had a terrible effect on young people's mental health and well-being. I sometimes think a bombardment of information is too much. It makes our lives kind of so staggeringly busy with so much content, you can't see the wood for the trees sometimes. So yes, it provides great opportunities, but I think it's got to be done in the right way. It's really got to be structured to do exactly what you want it to do and benefit your business and the people that come and visit Ireland. I'm just going to go back to bricks and mortar because that's my business, really. I think when people turn up at a place, they just want to experience the beauty of that place and the storytelling behind it and the people behind it. I just made a series that came out in January. I don't know if you saw it. It was all about American architecture and design. I think it's called George Clarke's
Adventures in
Adventures.
Americana.
Yeah, even the channel got the title wrong, but let's not talk about that. With all the AI and clever stuff in the world, they got the title wrong 3 times in all the PR, which I thought was amazing. That was about getting under the skin of a place. So yes, there might be the obvious stuff in America. So I did East Coast, West Coast, and I did a lot of the South, right? Now, if I went on the internet and said, tell me the greatest buildings to go and see on the East Coast of America, no doubt about it, I would get bombarded with that information. You would find it all straight away, right? But Americana is about getting under the skin of a place and not doing the obvious. And I found that really interesting. So if I was making an architectural program for architects, taken everything that was given to me from the research that we did before we went. It would be, go and see the Guggenheim, go and see the Empire State Building, go and see a Mies van der Rohe building. Got to go and see some Frank Lloyd Wright stuff because Frank Lloyd Wright is America's greatest architect. Let's go and see all that. We intentionally didn't do any of that. And so we went to see the stuff that was capturing American culture through design on many deeper levels, and some not so deep. Like we'd go to a motel or a diner. Now they don't come up as like your top 10 searches on the internet for what the best architecture in America is, but my God, they really sum up what American architecture and design is about. So that was an amazing process for me to go through, actually, about how do you go to a place that you'd never really experienced before and really get under the skin of it to sell something different.
And that is, so there's two things I think that you do so well, which is one is really getting in under the skin of a place, but the other is the fact that I don't think you've worked on a new build in, or if ever, like you're all about it's repurposing at a physical level, but reimagining at a cultural or at a heart level.
Yeah, it was interesting that AI picked the word grand out, and we always avoid the word grand with my programs because that's Kevin's word. Grand designs. Mine's amazing. So AI got that massively wrong. But it didn't, I'm joking aside. What it got wrong is that I don't really like reggae music, but let's not talk about that. I'm joking again. Yeah, I've never done a new build house on television ever before. Ever. I've made God knows how many programs. I think someone worked out I've done like 370 one-hour TV programs in my career. Never ever done a new build house, ever. It's all been about repurposing old buildings, understanding old buildings, the story of the old buildings, the sustainability of old buildings, actually. I mean, you talk about being green. There's nothing greener than building a building that can last 200-300 years and be repurposed and repurposed again. The amount of embodied energy in a piece of architecture is enormous. Absolutely enormous. Products being shipped from all over the world to build something, being transported from a ship on a lorry to get the site, cement mixers, concrete mixers, slate brought from China rather than being from Wales, and the list can go on and on and on and on. All this stuff has to arrive into a place and we build it. And if it just lasts 50 years, that's terrible. And it genuinely worries me that a lot of the new build stuff that's created today is not going to last anywhere near 100 years, like nowhere near. And in some ways, the building's even built in a way that's going to make it very difficult for it to be adapted as well, because a lot of them are quite flimsy. It's just layer after layer of flimsy stuff. But some of the more robust, stronger buildings that have been built can kind of withstand the test of time. They can withstand being knocked around a little bit and repurposed into something.
I mean, that's so important in a tourism context about building to last, but also discovering or rediscovering what it is that you already have. So maybe it's not necessarily, as you say, about going online and finding the big ticket attractions. It's actually about those smaller, more maybe unique projects that actually makes a place special.
Yeah, I mean, it's comes back to what I said about Americana. I think when you get under the skin of it, you start revealing secrets of a place that people might not have otherwise discovered. And sometimes they're really small things, slightly hidden away things. That's why I'm a kind of big fan of like small independent businesses or like small boutique hotels and things that are slightly off the beaten track a little bit more, because they provide something I think very unique. And I'm not knocking big business and big business chains either, because they serve a purpose. I'm not knocking big buildings that are built that are new either, because they serve a purpose. If you're going to build an enormous arena to do gigs, it's probably just going to serve that one purpose through its lifetime. That's absolutely fine. But the small scale, kind of independent, quirky stuff, I think you just have to look on Instagram to see how people love experiencing and finding those things.
You have been traveling here for a long time. What are the biggest changes you've seen? Or what do you think it is that makes this place?
Come on, I mean, Belfast has massively changed. I think the first time I came was 24, 25 years ago. It's just unbelievably different on so many different levels. I mean, you talk about the increase in tourism and the political situation, and it's mind-boggling. I mean, it is genuinely one of the big success stories, and I'm not just saying that because I'm in Belfast with a room full of people from Belfast, but it is amazing.
Also, we can sort of claim part of you, because I know you recently did a DNA test, and we've got a little bit of you.
I'm only about 3% Irish. To
It's
be honest,
enough.
I
It's
can't.
enough.
I can't really kind of bang the drum at a high. It's like if I was like 80%, I might get away with it. But yeah, I'm about 3 or 4% Irish. But who isn't? You know, who isn't? But you know, and again, I'm not just saying. I love coming to Ireland. I love coming to Northern Ireland. The people are fantastic, really positive. I mean, you can't shut them up. It's amazing. Yeah, and God, when it comes to storytelling, they're brilliant as well, and they love a yarn, and the crack's always really good. I just find it a really, really vibrant place to be. It's in some ways, it does remind me of the northeast of England, and it's not just about Sunderland. My mates will kill me for saying that, but I love Newcastle. I went to university there. It's a great city. The architecture's amazing. But when you meet the people back in the northeast, they've just got this. There's a warmth to them, there's a friendliness to them, and there's a real passion for where they live. And I think I can
Grates you as a
exactly.
tourist? What really gets your goats?
What's what?
What grates you? What annoys you as a tourist? What?
I didn't know you can ask me that. Do you know what? And maybe it comes back to something that Adrian touched on a bit actually. That I hate bad customer service, right? And what's really, I'm going to apologies for this, but really pisses me off is that particularly in hospitality and parts of hospitality, and this isn't everywhere, but what I've experienced a lot, particularly in a post-COVID world, it's been very, very hard for hospitality, which got battered. Obviously, got absolutely battered. A lot of people left, and a lot of people with experience and knowledge left. And I get the difficulties of trying to recruit and get people back. But I've definitely, I've been staying in hotels and travelled relentlessly for the last 20 odd years, and I do genuinely live out of a suitcase, which is not ideal. But it's amazing that I find, I don't know, it's as if I'm a pain in the backside for people working in hospitality rather than a customer. And I'm not really an annoying customer, I'm not just like, whatever, I'm kind of quite chilled about it. I was in New York the other week with my daughter, and I went to this place for just to get a coffee and a juice on the morning. And I'd picked this orange juice off the shelf, and while my daughter was waiting for her drink, we'd paid, and I thought, right, I'll just drink the juice while I'm in the shop, even though we were getting takeaway. And when I opened it, it exploded everywhere. It was all over me, right? I was covered in it. And I looked, and I thought, God, I'm an idiot. I must have picked sparkling juice, and I've shook it, thinking it was a natural juice, and it's exploded everywhere. Turns out it wasn't. It was a natural juice, but it had gone off. And when the juice goes off, it fizzes inside. So I went up to the counter, and I said to the guy, I said, look, I'm sorry, but the juice has gone off. And it sounds like such a pathetic story, but it's kind of symptomatic of what goes on. And rather than just saying to me, oh my God, I'm really sorry, and can we click, because I was covered, absolutely covered in orange juice, you could see it everywhere. He kind of looked at me and he said, what do you mean it's off? And I went, well, taste it. And then he looked back at me and went, I'm not going to drink that. If it's off, I'm not tasting it. And I'm like, why am I having this conversation with you? Like, we shouldn't even be going there. Just say to me, I'm really sorry, and we'll replace your drink, and can we sort out your clothes? And, the attitude was so bad. If I'm honest, it kind of scarred my trip. Now, that's probably me sounding like a right Victor Meldrew, because we obviously had loads of positive experiences on the trip as well. But it's that classic thing, isn't it, that most customers always remember the bad stuff and don't necessarily always remember the good stuff, because the bad stuff really jars with you. And I was a bit upset about it. I was like thinking, why have I just got attitude for that? I've come into his shop to buy something, and then he's giving me shit for it. Like, and I'm not saying the customer is always right. I've never really believed that phrase, to be honest, because you can get some right miserable customers around who just complain about anything no matter what. I did see one on the flight this morning, actually. I hope he's not here. What a miserable sod he was. Everything was a problem. And so I get that you get that as well. But I think the knack of training, and I suppose this is what I'm coming, long-winded answer, but I feel sorry for the hospitality industry a bit, and being able to recruit and then retain them, because I think there's a lot of young people just think it's a temporary job. I said to my son recently, he's at university, I said, you need to get a job and earn some money, and it's about him grafting. And the first thing he said was, don't send me into the hellhole of hospitality, Dad. Right now, that was his phrase straight away to me, and he's 21 today. And he just didn't want to do it. And I think he's heard about experiences of where young people have maybe not been treated so well in hospitality, but on the flip side, I've spoke to hoteliers who have said, we get kids turning up who just don't want to learn. So I think there's a big issue that's happening in a post-COVID
And a big,
world.
what we were hearing earlier, really to lean into the skills and the training, and especially
So
to.
I just think, and again, I'm not part of the industry, so I'm just talking about this as a kind of customer, really. But when there's certain parts of the world that I go to, and I see people working in hospitality, you can see it's an absolute profession, and they stay in it for many years, and they love it, and they want to do a great job, and they want to be part of it. And I think if we can have as much of that as possible, it would be great. It's great for everybody, isn't it? It's good for your business. It's great for the young people that are working there. They feel like they're really proud of their job and what they're doing. And then it's great for the people who have got to experience hospitality as well.
You're going to stay with us, George, for our panel discussion, but thank you very, very much. Stay there, do not go. You are your AI version. Thank you so much.